So it's been a crazy few weeks, but I'm finally back with more Metallica reviews. And this week is the turn of Reload from 1997. I've actually reviewed this album with some of my mates in That Sound podcast and also The Chilled Dude on a Couch. So be sure to check out that review. It's much longer and it's got different people's points of view. So you might be interested in that if you like this album or if you don't like this album. So Reload by Metallica was the 7th studio album by the band and it was released on November 18th, 1997. Reload was a follow-up to Load, which was released in 1996, and it's Metallica's last studio album to feature bassist Jason Newsted. Reload debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200 and sold 436,000 copies in its first week. This album was also certified 3 times platinum in the United States. The album was produced by James Hetfield, Lars Ulrich and of course Bob Rock, and it was recorded at the Plant Studio in Sausalito, California. So the original idea that Metallica had was to release Load and Reload as a double album. But because the process was taking so long, the band decided to halve the songs and put the songs that were ready. That batch went on to the first album, which was called Load, and the batch that they were still working on went on to the second album called Reload. This album had some huge singles including Fuel, The Memory Remains, Devil's Dance and Unforgiven 2. So for me, this album, it's really an album of two halves. The first half is some decent solid material which would have easily fit onto Load, but in my opinion, the second half of this album, it drags and it's not as good as the first half. This album is also very experimental. There's songs like Low Man's Lyric and Where the Wild Things Are, which are very different to what Metallica had recorded before. Very moody, melodic, long songs. I know some people like them, but not really my cup of tea. I think Reload is a decent album, but I don't think it's as strong as Load. And I do get the sense that the songs on this album are the second batch of songs. I think the best songs they used on Load, which was the best batch, and then this batch is what was left over that they worked on. In interviews, James Hetfield made a very interesting comment where he said to Lars, I think it was during the Some Kind of Monster documentary based on the recording of Saint Anger, and James basically says in the room with Lars and the rest of the band that I think we proved on Load and Reload that we can whip anything into shape. Basically meaning they had all these ideas of songs, but they were able to get them down, recorded, get a structure on them and release them on an album. Now don't get me wrong, the production on this album is amazing, as was a lot of the production on the albums in the 1990s with Bob Rock. But I think on the latter half of the album, the songs just don't stand up in my opinion. And I much prefer listening to Load ahead of Reload. So all in all, I'm going to give this album a 5 out of 10. It's not an album I listen to very often, but it's still not terrible. So let me know in the comments what you think. Hit subscribe, like and the notification bell, and I'll talk to you on the next one. Bye now.